Tonight, on A Week in League, we'll be taking a look at roster changes from all over the globe. We'll be looking at the LPL standings, LCS 10, Russia's back, TSM investigation, and so much more. Roll the intro. As usual, timestamps and references will be in the description, and while you're down there, don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button. Thanks. Now, before we get into it, we're going to be doing things a little differently this week, since MSI just wrapped up, so we're going to recap MSI before we get into any roster changes. MSI just wrapped up crowning RNG as the new champions, giving them their second consecutive MSI win. RNG's mid laner Jiaohu and support Ming are now the only two players to have 3 MSI titles total. What an achievement. Without getting into too much detail, the event faced community backlash, everything from the tournament format, the ping issues, and RNG not being there. It's needless to say that the whole situation was less than ideal. The LPL representative RNG made it into the finals facing the other tournament favorite, the LCK representative T1. The finals was an intense series going all the way to 5 games with notable performances from both teams. RNG were up 2-1, but T1 were unable to close it out, leaving RNG the winner 3-2. RNG's jungler Wei was crowned the MSI MVP, and while the finals was great and all, it kind of felt a little off when the confetti started dropping and T1 were the only people on stage. Yeah, if you don't know, RNG was remote. Whole thing was kind of off in my opinion, but whatever. Here's a quick look at the MSI standings. As you can see, we got RNG up top, SKT second, we got EDG and G2 tied for 3rd and 4th place. The rest doesn't really matter. Anyways, now that we got the MSI finals out of the way, let's get into the LPL. You may already know that the LPL kicked off on the 10th, and there's already games happening every day. However, we're not going to be covering any of the games just yet. We'll be talking only roster changes this week, and we'll take a look at the LPL games on the next episode. Now, there were a handful of roster changes in the LPL this offseason, but we're going to start out with the banger headline. Bin, the guy that just won MSI with RNG, yeah, that guy, he's going to Weeaboo Gaming, baby. As you can see, we got the Weeaboo Gaming roster on screen. Bin is going to be slotting in a top lane, which is a perfect segue into their top laner Breathe, who will be moving to RNG. So here's a look at the RNG lineup. RNG will only be swapping out their top laner Bin for Breathe. Anyone's Legend will be promoting their Academy mid laner Harder to be possibly splitting time with their existing mid laner Forge to split. Edward Gaming, or EDG, jungler Junjia returns to EDG after spending a split on Rare Atom. Now we'll have to see how this actually goes, because I doubt he'll be splitting time with their existing jungler. Invictus Gaming, or IG, the 10-man roster remains unchanged. JDG's starting roster remains the same, although they have dropped all their substitute players with the exception of mid laner Yaming. LGD is looking to shake things up this summer by adding 3 more players to their existing 5-man lineup. Here's the new 8-man roster as you can see on your screen. LNG's roster remains the same heading into the summer split. FPX promotes mid laner Care from their academy team to the main roster. Technically, they're also bringing back support Lele, but we'll have to see who ends up playing more games this split. OMG will be running a 7-man roster heading into the summer split, adding a mid laner and an AD carry to their existing 5-man lineup. Rare Atom. Technically, there have been no changes to their lineup, however, jungler Junjia did leave to go back to EDG. That's about it. Team WE picked up SMLZ and support Heal to round out their new 7-man roster. Zoom has left the team, but Wayward was the one that played most of the games last split anyways, so we'll say no changes happened to this roster. Wink, wink. TT Gaming takes the lead for the most roster changes this split, swapping out all their junglers and all their mid laners and adding a new substitute AD carry. Here's a look at their new roster. Ultra Prime will be adding Zoom into their lineup, running this 7-man roster heading into the summer split. V5 will be adding mid laner Dream to their 5-man lineup, but it's a very questionable move since I don't see them swapping out Rookie anytime soon. I guess they're just hoping to get him under his wings or something. Maybe Rookie's planning to go on vacation. We'll never know. Weeaboo Gaming. Now, this is very similar to the V5 move, where they're adding another top laner to sit behind the Shy, but again, I don't see anybody taking time away from the Shy, but maybe this is an indication of the Shy rookie vacation happening mid-split. We'll have to see how that goes. And that just about covers all the LPL roster changes. Now, some LPL games have already happened, and we're not going to be covering those this week. You could go ahead and watch some replays, watch someone else who covered them, but next week we'll be recapping every game from the LPL on this show. So tune in. Time for Game of the Week. Reminder, this is my opinion, this is my pick, and guess what? I love me some Shy, man. If you're a Shy fan, you need to watch this series. Weeaboo Gaming versus IG, 5 out of 5, classic Shy, would watch again. Here's a quick look at the LPL standings. Now, like I said, we won't be covering any of the games or going too much into detail this week, but tune in next week. The LCK Summer Split starts on June 15th, and while there are no games for us to cover just yet, we'll be going over all the roster changes. Starting off with DRX, and the DRX roster remains unchanged. On a side note, I know it's too early, but I'd love to see DRX at Worlds so I can see what Deft can do against the international competition. I don't know if you guys know who Deft is, but this guy's been around for a really long time, and I'd love to see how he stack up in 2022. Dom1Kia is looking to spice things up this summer split with the highly awaited return of the ex-world champion top laner, Naguri. We'll have to see if Naguri and his ex-2 teammates, Showmaker and Canyon, still got what it takes. As you can see, they're making no changes to their lineup. After finishing second place in the spring split, Generation Gaming, Gen G, is looking to keep things the same. Hanwha Life Esports, no changes to the main roster. Kwangdong Freaks, heading into the summer split, they have added support player Moham from their sister team KDF Challengers. Live Sandbox, or Sandbox, welcomes back Prince, their ex-AD carry, who was on the roster back in 2021. The main roster remains the same. T1, after almost winning MSI and dominating and winning the spring split, they're making no changes to their main roster. And that's a wrap on the LCK roster roundup. Tune in next week for a coverage of all the games. We're just going to jump right into the first LEC roster change, with Team Astralis making big changes to their lineup, swapping out White Knight for Vizicachi, their jungler Zanzara for Xerxes, and their support Promiscu for Junghoon. It's hard to gauge exactly where this team is going to be heading into the summer split, but I'm excited to see them on stage this weekend. Mad Lions swap out their mid laner Reeker for mid laner Niski, and I'm excited for Niski's return to the LEC. Team BDS swap out top laner Adapt for Aggressivo and support player Limit for Erdot. Team Vitality kicks their jungler Selfmade off the main roster and adds 2 import junglers, Haru and Boo. Misfits Gaming will be starting the season with the same lineup, at least until they find a replacement for their top laner. The rest of the teams are going to be done rapid fire style because they've made no changes to their main lineups. Excel, Fnatic, G2, Rogue, SK. And that's it for all the LEC rosters. The LEC starts on June 15th, so tune in next week for a coverage of all the games and a look at the standings. The LCS, my personal favorite league, and the theme this year is LCS 10, celebrating 10 years of esports history. But before we get into that, let's talk roster changes. The LCS Summer Split is starting off with big moves, and I mean big moves. Mid laner Jensen is coming back to Cloud9. Yes, you heard that correctly. And while we're on Jensen, let's talk Cloud9. Here's the Cloud9 roster heading into the Summer Split, and they will be changing things up quite a bit. Fudge is going to be back in the top lane, and no, that's not the only role swap happening on this team. Sven will be swapping to support, and Jensen will be joining them as the mid laner. Winsome, Summit, and Isles will all be let go from Cloud9. After the departure of head coach LS this summer, I suspected that some roster moves were bound to happen since the whole church approach doesn't really work for everybody. Now, I'm a big believer, but not everybody's a member of church. CLG will be letting go of their top laner Jenkins for Dokla. Dignitas is letting go of their top laner Fake God for Gamshu. Golden Guardians is letting go of their AD carry player Lost and their Demoting, promoting, their coach Stixay is stepping in as their new AD carry player heading into the summer split. We'll have to see how this move turns out. Immortal's new summer lineup is Revenge, Kenvi, PoE, Lost, and Ignar, and I'm pretty excited to watch these guys this weekend. TSM will be keeping everything the same except mid lane and possibly support. More on that in other news. Kai Duo is out, and Maple is the new mid laner for Team Solo Mid. I mean, TSM FTX or whatever. The supports will be competing for the starting spot. More on that in other news. It's rapid fire roster time. 100 Thieves, unchanged. EG, no changes. FlyQuest, Team Liquid. And that wraps up all the LCS rosters going into the summer split. The LCS summer split starts on June 17th, and you bet your ass there's gonna be a recap next week. And we're going to take a look at the standings, so tune in next week for a coverage of the LCS and all other 3 leagues. Welcome to Other News, where we cover news that may or may not be related to the esports. Our first headline, Rush is back. Some of you may know who he is, some of you may not, but he's an ex-pro player. He played in NA for a while, he was on Cloud9, he was a jungler, and he's back. After disappearing on Twitter for almost 2 years, he tweeted out saying, "Things I lost from my time in the army: humanity and league skills. Gold 2. It didn't take long before PV Man, and that's NA MVP spelt backwards. Did I mention that he was the NA MVP when he was here? Yeah, as the time of recording this video, PV Man has made it up to Masters. Now, I wouldn't get my hopes up on him joining a pro team anytime soon, but it's good to see such an entertaining streamer back in the community. In other news, the TSM investigation on Andy Reginald, the TSM CEO and ex-mid lane star, has concluded. Here's a quote from the statement released on TSM's Reginald personal Twitter account in a twit longer. Quote, "After interviewing over 30 current, past employees and contractors, including all the current League of Legends players, the investigator found no evidence of any unlawful behavior on the part of the company, its executives, or by me personally. In addition, not a single witness described any systematic and or isolated incident of sexual harassment or gender discrimination." End quote. Link in the description if you want to read the whole thing. The other investigation happening inside of TSM has also concluded. The investigation confirmed Zhang's inappropriate behavior around player salaries. I won't get into too much detail on here, but there's an excellent Dextera article written by our boy Richard Lewis. Link is in the description. In other TSM news, Shen Yi will be starting for TSM Academy, and Mia will be playing for the main roster this weekend. The whole thing's a little iffy. They chucked it up to performance. Again, link in description if you want to read more, but we'll have to see who ends up playing more as the season progresses. In other news, LS on his stream earlier said that Berserker may have lost or gotten his passport stolen. There's no official statement from Cloud9 yet, but they've tweeted, quote, "Expect the unexpected," end quote. Coincidence? In other news, it's kind of known that a lot of LPL leaks come from Doinby's stream. However, it looks like the player is getting fined on 2 leaks for $10,000 US. We'll have to see if the leaks stop now that they've got a cost associated with them. Cha-ching! In other news, star AD carry player Uzi will not be returning to play this summer split. He said on his stream that he needs more time to rest. More information below. In other news, and maybe not so much news, the LCS has put out a fire video celebrating 10 years of the LCS. The video featured industry veterans all the way back from Season 1, people who I'm pretty sure are not even around in the scene anymore, but it's good that they were able to get them, with appearances from Doublelift, Sneaky, Rivington, Hotshot, Balls, Lemonation, Shifter, Voyboy, Freak, the LCS Commissioner. I'm sure I'm missing some, but everybody was in this video. Damn. I've been watching the LCS since the very beginning, and I gotta say, it's content like that that celebrates the history of the LCS that gets me very excited. That kind of stuff just hits me right in the feels, man. Good job to the LCS broadcast team. I'm looking forward to more content coming out this season. And that concludes our show for tonight. Tune in next week for coverage of all 4 leagues, standings, and recap of all the games. Thanks for watching. Have a good night, and good luck in solo queue.